lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and he missed the complete that. He's crazy stuff.
Side Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through, he tags Richard Eck.
With cautions and carnage ruling the day at Road Atlanta, the team showed up at Mid-Ohio hoping for fewer bent fenders. Dan Rash was able to best Kimmo Suominen for the pole, while the Finn began beside him in second. In the ST class, none of James Stevenson's main rivals bothered to show, leaving him with a stranglehold on first in qualifying. Josh Leutz took advantage of the situation and filled out the front row. When the green flag waved, the GS cars weaved through madness cleanly. Soon after, the ST class took the green behind them, and Leutz saw an opportunity heading into China Beach. The number 60 car managed to snatch the lead on lap 1. Stevenson was not so generous the next time by, and the Aussie took his traditional first place back. While the red and green car became a spec, the 4 cars behind him began what would literally become a race-long battle for second best. Even though the ST class was no contest, Kimmo spent the first half of the race quietly stalking Rash for the GS lead. When the two pitted at the same time on lap 23, the Finn managed to undercut the number 35 Mustang and just snuck out into the lead. Dan made an immediate and aggressive charge, and the two made contact. Suominen held on, but before things could get any hotter, the caution flag flew. Wes Eric and Hang Ho Tao had tangled on the front stretch. A number of drivers attempted to hop into the pits before the yellow was thrown, but the gamble backfired and the 2V Apex cars were sent to the end of the line for entering a closed pit lane. Once the field came back around for the restart, it was Suominen leading the way. Rash had a good run, but Kimmo returned the aggressive favor by running the Frito-Man car all the way to the wall. The two phenoms raced side by side, corner after corner, and it was clear something would have to give. It all finally came to a head in madness when the two Mustangs touched and the number 18 was spun around. With 30 minutes left, pit stops were over, and Kimmo was now faced with the unenviable task of overtaking the entire field if he wanted to catch Rash. As the laps clicked off, the Finn began to demote cars one by one. With less than 7 minutes to go, he had reached fourth and began to hunt down Randy Cheneth to try and salvage a podium. Kimmo hounded the Californian at every corner, desperate to get by. With a sense of deja vu, the two came into madness on the final lap, side by side. But this time the Finn prevailed and continued his streak of finishing every race in the top 3. Up ahead, Travis Mim had utilized his excellent pit strategy to finish second, and Dan Rash easily obtained win number 2 of the season. Meanwhile in ST, the battle for second between Mogren, Leutz, and Overgaard raged on unabated since lap 2. When the white flag fell, Marco held track position while Josh looked for a gap in the Swede's armor. As the two approached the carousel, Josh put the Corona car in a seemingly impossible gap. With all 4 wheels off, he slid into the side of Mogren, which sent the number 2 car careening towards the tire barriers. The tussle left just enough room for Stefan to pounce, and the Dane grabbed an opportunistic second place. Leutz followed him home in third, while miles away from it all, Stevenson had taken his 4th win in a row. Season 4 has now reached the halfway mark, meaning drivers' opportunities to fight for the championship are becoming fewer and fewer. Today, the teams bring their trucks to upstate New York for Round 6 held at Watkins Glen International. I'm your host, Joe Peak. With me in the booth is Richard Losper and Sean Ambrose. Sean, with over 60 years of history, this place has had cars from a lot of different disciplines and a lot of different eras putting rubber down.
You're right, Joe. Watkins Glen is an old-school track that takes you back to a golden age in motorsport. Commonly referred to as the Mecca of American road racing, this track has seen some of the greatest to ever strap in. Gurney, Andretti, Bell, Ickx, to name just a few of the greats that have turned laps on this 12-turn, 3.4-mile circuit. The 90 at turn 1 will bunch up the field right at the start, and then the backstretch is the longest flat-out section of the track and will be an opportunity for drivers to slingshot their opponent and gain position. Then you've got the unusually high banked corners like the carousel and the toe of the boot that make this track so unique. Of course, a big one to watch out for is that fast left-hand penultimate turn. This is a high commitment corner that has caught out more than its fair share of drivers over the years. After that, the drivers head under that famous bridge and across the finish line.
And it was at that line that we saw last year's controversial finish between Brown and Clayson unfold. But for most of the other drivers, their minds are probably more concerned with those very close powder blue Armco barriers. With how aggressive most of the field has been driving in Season 4, fireworks almost seem guaranteed. The two GS class leaders, Rash and Swamenham, have already come to blows multiple times this season. If the two continue to tangle, it could lead to other drivers catching them in the points. Meanwhile, Stevenson has been making his wins in the ST class look effortless as he has trounced the field in every event bar one this season. Can anyone stop his domination? This track may prove to offer an opportunity, with the draft being a huge factor around here. Besides using the powerful slipstream, being adaptable with your pit strategy and avoiding the carnage is the only way to ensure you'll have a chance to fight at the top when the final lap arrives. But we won't find out who will be there for another 90 minutes, so stick around, because when the green flag drops, the action starts at the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series at Watkins Glen International. Welcome to the beautiful Finger Lakes, or at least the virtual facsimile of it, here on the iRacing service. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's going to be a good race, as it always is here at CESCS at Watkins Glen International. Now, this track is, as we said in the intro, has a lot of history, Sean. And, tell us a few of the stats and facts about this place as we get started here.
Thanks, Joe. 3.4 miles long, so it's pretty good long trip around. You'll be running about 2 minutes 15 seconds, 90-minute long race, 12 turns to be concerned about here, so you have to be on your game today. Now we'll turn it over to Richard for the points.
Well, guys, good evening, and the standings at the moment for the GS class is Kimmo Suominen is on 221 points. So he's leading this championship. Dan Rash is 17 points back on 204 points, with German Afanador a little ways back, 154 points, that's minus 67. Then we have Patrick Bieri and Russell Claessens, respectively, on 140 and 130 points. So that's your top five in GS. In ST, we have James Stevenson on 219 points. He is way ahead of the nearest rival, who is Tom Ecklein on 139 points. Stefan Overgaard brings up the third position on 134 points, with Joshua Lloyds also on 134 points. And these guys are 85 points behind. Then it's Eric Biggs, Stefan Morian, and Matthew Reinl. So, Joe, it seems to me quite close at the top of the GS class, not so in the ST class.
Yeah, James really has been making this no contest so far this season. But, we're only halfway through it, so there's still time for mistakes to be made. You never know. Hopefully someone can step up and start to challenge him. But before we get too in-depth in that and some of the other stories about this race, we want to take you on a lap around here and kind of get you a feel of what it's like inside the car. So why don't we cue up that video and see what it's like doing a lap around Watkins Glen International.
Sounds good.
All right, Kevin Brown is getting ready to take us on a lap around Watkins Glen inside the GSRC Mustang. Coming down the front straightaway here, crossing the start-finish line, you're going to have a heavy braking zone coming into 1, which is a 90-degree right-hander. Get right up to that curb, but don't take too much. Now you're going to be able to go very wide on the exit. As you can see, you got a lot of concrete runoff. You're not punished for that. Then this uphill, you have to get as good as an exit as you can on turn 1, because you're flat to the floor for quite a while. Basically, you just want to carry as much speed as you can through these S's, because you're going to come up to a possible passing zone as you get to this back straightaway. You might be able to use the draft. You're definitely going to be able to use the draft in the MX-5s. But another hard braking zone. Now the inner loop presents an interesting challenge. It's very one-lined. You want to get the car rotated for the exit there. And then you'll come around the carousel, which is a long right-hander. There's a lot of banking, too, for a road course. It's very unusual. Careful not to clip the grass too much on the exit there. Then you got braking for this downhill left-hander. The car is probably going to want to push unless you got a very loose setup, which dumps you onto this downhill into the toe of the boot. Now this is kind of a passing zone, depends on the exit that you get. But the real important thing here is to carry your momentum, because it's got a very long uphill straightaway. And if you come out a little too slow or in a gear too high, then you're just going to be very vulnerable, because this is another passing zone coming up here. Hard braking into the heel of the boot. Make sure and stick to those concrete grooves that you'll see around the track. Those are really going to be a big guide. Then braking into this left-hander. Now the car's going to push on entry, and then you'll go over the crest and you'll see the car get loose right here. Now, there's a lot of guys that overcook it and spin the car there. And then coming into the penultimate corner, it's very, very fast, very tricky, but you just got to lift and then get on the acceleration, but don't clip the grass because you can spin once again. Then the final corner, Kevin got a lot of curb there, but mostly you just want to stay away from that outside wall while carrying as much speed as you can so that you can pass on in the front straightaway. Welcome back. That was a really good lap. As usual, that was run by Kevin Brown in the car there, and it always impresses me how fast he can get that thing around there. But let's talk about some of the stories of the race, guys. It's been an interesting year, and things have been developing for about a year, actually. Well, I should say less than a year, because the season is only 6 months in this series. But Brown versus Clayson is really the one, I think, on a lot of people's minds. Now, Sean, I know you haven't been around as much to watch this, but Richard, you've seen this one unfold a little bit. About 6 months ago, when we were last at Watkins Glen for the non-initiated, Russell Clayson essentially jumped the start. It was not allowed at the time. They've since changed that rule. And the marshals decided not to punish him and let him keep the win that he got from that start. So it was a bit controversial. It caused a bit of tempers to flare and people to be a bit concerned. Since then, obviously, Steve Brown, who lost that win to Russell, has not been best of friends with him. But they've made contact in the last race recently and are really kind of eyeing each other suspiciously, Richard. So I think that this race might see a few fireworks between them, possibly.
Well, to be honest, Joe, I hope that's the case, because it'll add a bit of excitement. But you're quite right. Russell is known as the last of the late breakers, and when you race that way, the potential to get into the back of somebody is always there. And Russell has had more than his fair share of hits into other cars. So unfortunately, Steve's been on the receiving end a couple of times of that contact. So Steve's not all that happy about it. It remains to be seen what happens today, but I do hope there's a bit of fireworks.
We always enjoy a bit of controversy around here. Makes things interesting. Now, Sean, another thing to talk about is the cautions and how they've been going this season. Last time we were here, we had 4 in a row right at the start of the race. Do you think that we'll see more of that, especially with how close these barriers are?
Well, I think the potential exists for sure. I mean, that 90 to start the race, I mean, it always backs up there, and I mean that's the biggest potential, obviously. And in the S's, you know, once you get up to speed there, it's pretty tight getting through there, and you'll see cars get out of shape because they don't have enough heat in the tires, and they get really squirrely through there. So I think anything's possible, but I think the potential certainly exists for multiple cautions, and well, let's hope for the sake of good racing that we don't see many of them.
Yeah, we got a little bit lucky, I think, 2 weeks ago at Mid-Ohio that there was only one caution, especially that track really catching a lot of people out. The other thing, though, is you mentioned the S's and the 90. There's that bus stop that is very difficult, and it's a prime passing zone, but at the same time it's not. you'll see guys really try to stick their nose in, but it's very tough to make it work. You really need the other person to cooperate, or it can turn into a really bad situation. And part of what leads to that, Richard, is the draft. And tell us a little bit about how that affects the ST cars around here.
Well, the draft is probably the strongest, excepting perhaps on an oval track. But of all the road courses, the draft is very much the strongest you will find, particularly with the Mazdas. As you come up through the S's, you can gain a half a second on the car in
Or you can reach it.
By the time you get right up into the bus stop, you can be right on top of that. And as you mentioned there, Joe, that's an area where if you're not careful, because you're carrying that extra speed, you have to brake at the right time, or you can see a bunch of accidents happening there. And let's hope that's not the case today, because that certainly will breed a bunch of cautions.
And cautions tend to breed cautions, as we always know. Now, it's not just Brown and Clayson that are two cars that have been getting physical around these tracks in the series so far. Suominen and Rash, the two championship leaders, they've made contact at least on four separate occasions that I was able to go back and track down, possibly more than that. And, I mean, Sean, these guys obviously are very good drivers, but I mean, how long can this last before the two of them are at each other's throats for just getting into each other so much like this?
Well, Joe, I don't know. Certainly over the past couple races, it seems they don't like each other a whole lot. But I don't know. I think today, with the points and the balance the way they are, I almost get the feeling they're going to give each other a little bit of space and race hard. I mean, this track you can give a little bit, but who knows? Like I said, over the last two races, they've tangled a bit, and that'll certainly be something to watch today.
I know if I were in Kimo's shoes, I wouldn't be too particularly happy about the last one. I know it was mostly a racing incident between himself and Dan, but the way he got tipped around and had to fight back, that kind of hurt him a little bit. Obviously, he's still leading the championships, not too much, especially with coming back for a third-place finish. But I know, to me, that would just seem... I would be a little bit more on guard around Dan if I were him, Sean.
Yeah, he'll be looking over his shoulder for sure. But we also know that Dan is fast, he's good, and he's going to be hard to get around. So when those two are close to each other, it should be very interesting today.
Now, Richard, the other thing that has been talked about somewhat since that rule change that I mentioned earlier about the restarts, the drivers can pass each other before the line, but we had a penalty handed out recently. I'm trying to recall exactly who was on the receiving end of that, for jumping the start. They're not allowed to get a run on someone, to hold back and try and get a run. But at the same time, if they get a good start and they didn't get on the gas before the green flag falls, obviously it's fair game. But I mean, what are your thoughts about how these restarts have been going, Richard? Do you think that people have been kind of pushing the limit, or do you think that everything's been pretty fair racing?
Well, I don't watch because I watch the ST more than GS, I can't comment too much on the GS class and their restarts. But certainly in ST, bear in mind these guys there's a request that they hang back a little bit from the GS class, so that they don't get right up their bumpers into turn one, because that could turn nasty. I don't think it's been all that bad, to be honest. The guys in the backpack, they're the ones that tend to try and hang back a little and try to gain an advantage. But I can't see that happening too much here today. The restart should be fairly straightforward, I believe.
And I was just listening to the marshal. Apparently, two cars were giving EOLs for exiting out of their cars and not going back to the pits. But they are not allowed to exit out of their cars on track. They must return to the pits as normal during qualifying. That's number 46, from what I'm hearing, and possibly another car. I couldn't quite make it out. So number 46 has an end-of-line penalty. That'll be interesting. We're just finishing up qualifying right now. We're going to let hot laps finish. Obviously, it's a pretty long lap around here. So we're going to make sure that that's out of the way and the cars are on the grid before we start reading it, so that we get everything straightened out. We get you the most correct information we possibly can. So as things start to shape up, Richard, I'm going to go to you first, and then we'll ask Sean. What do you think is the key to the race today?
The key to this race being a draft track, in my opinion, and this is probably for both classes, is what we saw in the previous race we broadcast, the Blondies race. Don't be too impatient right at the beginning of the race. Hang back, size up the competition, and wait for the opportune moments. Normally after the first round of pit stops, then you can your strategy can start to play out. If you're going to be too much in a hurry to grab first position, your chances are maybe good to grab the position, but if you can't stick to it because of the draft, then you are going to be fair game for the ones behind you, Joe. So it's patience is the key, I believe.
And Sean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think you're going to need a good pit strategy, obviously, and you're going to almost want to try and run this race backwards. Beginning as far as the fuel and tires will take you. But again, that strategy is going to be very important, and to stay on strategy, because without it, you're going to get left behind.
Guys, can I just butt in here? The checkered flag has flown, and they're starting to get into the car for the parade lap.
So that means that qualifying has fully settled down and everyone is in their positions. So as they get their cars to the grid and they get ready to start the warm-up lap, let's run through GS. Top 10 in GS, we have Dan Rash on the pole yet again. He's really been dominating this season as he usually does. Kimo is not far behind though, only 6/1000ths of a second behind. Kimo Suominen is filling out the front row in second. Then we have Patrick Bieri starting in third, really showing his speed lately. Travis Mims starts in fourth. Then the start of the third row is Steve Brown in fifth, Gerben Fanador in sixth, Randolph Chinoth starts in seventh, Russell Clayson is in eighth. Then we have Jonathan Auger in 9th and Nicholas Bailey in 10th. Sean, what's the rest of the GS class starting like?
Got Alex Molina in 11th, Tim Brokaw in 12th, James Brown in 13th, Fred Masters in 14th, Reno Tani in 15th, Jeff Jacobs there in 16th, Denny Locke in 17th, and rounding out the field in 18th is Marshall Williams.
Meanwhile, go ahead, Richard.
And in the ST class, James Stevenson is lead. He has the fastest qualifying time of 2 minutes 14.145. It's slightly slower than he did in practice, but it's the best time anyway. Stefan Overgaard is second. Arthur Chan in third place, also with the 2:14, but about half a second back. Joshua Leutz is in fourth place. Stefan Morient in fifth place. Ed Voras in sixth. Christopher Thompson in seventh. Tom Eckline in eighth. David Wammond in ninth. Philip Carpenter in 10th. And bringing up the rear is Hero Kanaya in 11th place. So smallish field in ST, Joe.
Yeah, not as large as we're used to. I was watching the chat window here of the drivers talking to each other pre-race. One thing that was mentioned was re-entering on turn 1. Now they have a lot of that runoff area on turn 1 at the exit there. So a lot of guys tend to try and use that, especially at the start where there's, 2, 3 wide, sometimes 4 wide if it gets really crazy. But the grass comes up very quickly, so you got to keep an eye. There have been accidents in the past caused by guys not watching out on both sides, whether they're on the track or they're coming back to the track. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. They're going through the inner loop right now, or at least the pace car is, so they're getting about halfway around the track. It's definitely going to be an interesting one, Richard. This track really throws up some unusual instances, and we definitely saw that last season.
Yes, we did. And just to make quick mention, Marshall Williams, the last of the GS class, he's actually starting from the pits if he's going to start at all, because I noticed that he's in the pits as we speak. But this track, these cars, the track it's got plenty of space. It's wide enough. There's enough space if you drive sensibly, and some of these guys are really great drivers, so we expect them to drive sensibly. It's going to be a fun race, and I'm looking forward to this start, Joe. Once they take off there, I'm looking at Kimmo Suominen sitting there behind Dan Rash, and he looks for all intents and purposes like he's a predator waiting to attack. So let's see what happens. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we mentioned a little bit earlier, even the track has a fair bit of width. Boy, the runoff does not in most places. They've got a few gravel traps, which you're seeing right now coming around the exit of, what is that? That is the heel of the boot on turn 8, actually. You've got places like that have runoff, but then coming through here, you see that wall is right there, and that is a very tricky corner, turn 9, Sean. It tends to catch a number of drivers out. But before, actually, I'm sorry, I know I was just about to hand off to you, Sean, but we've got the cars coming up. The GS class is getting ready to take the green, so I'm going to call them off here in a second. Dan Rash is taking them around the penultimate corner, coming up towards that last and final turn 11, or turn 12, rather, actually. So they're coming up, and the pace car should peel off any second now. Ducks away at the last second. Dan Rash leads them away. He's got control. The green flag waves. He pulls off. Kimmo gets a pretty good run. He's holding on. Patrick Bieri is very good. He's going to take a look to the inside, possibly. No, he decides to back out. Early days for that, so he's not going to really try to attempt anything. And they're going 2 by 2 through that first 90-degree right-hander. Everyone's very, very polite through there. Nobody's really off. Now, what does the ST start look like, Richard?
They've just crossed the line, and we have James Stevenson on the inside of the track. We've got Stefan Overgaard on the outside. Joshua Lloyd's just behind them. Stefan Overgaard gets a really good start, and he's now currently leading from
I'm sorry,
James
we've got a caution
Stevenson
flag out.
and Loish.
I'm sorry, but there's a caution flag out somewhere. I didn't quite catch who. We'll see if one of our spotters could possibly get us information. Looks like German Afanador had something go on, so let's go to him, see if we can get a replay on that, and see what exactly happened. It looks like it was a big one. There's the replay now, and it looks like he gets into Steve Brown, into the S's, and poor Fred Masters ran into him. Then we've got James Brown involved in it too. Reino Tani, looks like another orange. Jeff Jacobs got involved in that as well, and just barely avoided by Denny Locke towards the end. But that was a huge one there, Sean. Some multiple end-over-end tumbles for German.
Yeah, he hit that wall and then came right back across, and just havoc ensued. Not good. Not the start we were expecting or hoping for, but hopefully we can get this straightened back out and get under a good start here.
And it looks like Marshall Williams is taking part in the race. I think his reasoning for starting at the back there was that he actually qualified slower than a number of the ST cars, so he possibly did not want to get into the way in case something happened. But right now he is pulled up to the tail of the GS cars. That is, that could be very indicative of how this race seems like it might go, guys. Richard, I didn't quite catch exactly what all was going down in the ST. With all the chaos that was going on in GS, I mean, what's it looking like back there? Was it pretty hectic, or guys pretty respectful?
No, it was a very respectable start, Joe. We had James Stevenson on the inside heading into turn 1 with his teammate Stefan Overgaard on the outside. He looks like we got a bit of smoke up in front of these guys, but nevertheless, he was very respectful. He let Stefan go through into, yes, there's definitely a car smoking there, probably heading into the pits, one of the GS cars that is. He let Stefan go into the lead and just sort of held Joshua Lloyd's at bay, so it was a pretty quiet start there. Let's see who's that smoking car.
It looks like Fred Masters, actually, who's gone to the pits. I'm sure his day is probably going to be done. I don't think they can get that thing ready in time. But with the caution flag out, we're going to go to a quick break, and then we'll be back soon as things sort themselves out, and we'll give you the restart. Welcome back from the break. We are about 2 laps into this race, unfortunately, because we had a caution right away. A terrible accident with German Fanador being the one kicking it off, getting a little bit into Steve Brown, who thankfully has no damage. And unfortunately, he caught up a number of other cars. Jeff Jacobs was one of those. He is out of the race. Jeff Jacobs is actually in the pits right now, so he's getting repaired. Fred Masters, though, is definitely out of the race, and German Fanador, obviously, having kicked it off and rolled multiple times, is out of the race. So 2 cars out, and we're barely into this thing. But the lights are off in the pace car, so we're going to go green this time by. Hopefully we have a better restart. Sean, after something of a chaotic start, I mean, what are your thoughts so far?
Well, that was a pretty crazy way to start. It's a shame to lose a Fanador and Masters as well. But I think we're about to, the single file start. I think we got a better chance of getting away clean. I look for Rash to pull on out, and Kimmo to keep it close. Patrick's going to be there, and I'm glad Steve Brown didn't get any serious damage there, because I think he's going to be fast today too.
Now, Richard, I noticed during the break that you also noticed there was a change in the lead in ST.
Actually, no, there's no change in the lead. We still have Stefan Overgaard registered as being in first place, and in fact, he's ahead of James Stevenson. That's the way they were just before the caution came out, so that remains the case.
Well, the restart is just about to take off as the pace car pulls in just now. So Dan Rash leads them away once again, gets the green right away. Kimmo Suominen has a fairly good run. He's starting to gain ground on Dan, and it looks like Patrick Bieri is fairly good. We got someone really rushing up the inside, and that is none other than Russell Clayson. He is right behind Patrick Bieri. They're going to go 2 wide into that first corner. Everyone behind them kind of backs up. What does the ST look like?
Well, we've got the restart. They've just crossed the line. Stefan Overgaard in front. Joshua Lloyd's making a move on the inside of James Stevenson. Looks like he's going to get away with that. James Stevenson has gone wide and allowed him to pass. They're still side by side, James Stevenson. In fact, just a little bit ahead. Arthur Chan looking just behind these guys as well. So pretty exciting at the moment here now. Joshua Lloyd's didn't have the speed to keep up with James, and he's under threat now from Arthur Chan, but he covers the outside there and then ducks back towards the inside. So this is the entrance to the bus stop. Let's see what happens here. James Stevenson challenges Stefan Overgaard, makes it stick. Joshua Lloyd's right up the back now of Stefan Overgaard. Arthur Chan, Mr. Unfortunate, has decided to just hang back a little bit and see what happens. But that's where we are right now, Joe. Sorry.
It's okay. That's a lot to really cover there, as action is coming thick and fast. Now, Josh Lloyds was right up on the back of Overgaard for a second there. Overgaard in that blue and white car, and Josh Lloyds in that blue and white Corona car. So both blue and white, but Josh is behind. Anyways, but I was going to say, Richard, that Josh has really been impressing me this season. He's been on great form. Currently in third. Obviously, it's very early in the race. We're only on lap 3, but he's holding on to Stefan very well right now.
That's right, and in the practice, and even in an earlier practice, he was in there. He was shadowing Stefan Overgaard because I fancy that he thinks he can get the better of Stefan. That's going to take some doing. Stefan's really fast here, so I've got a lot of respect for his ability, particularly at this track. But having said that, Josh is not giving an inch. He's right on the back of him, and Arthur Chan, I think, being rather clever. Or just not having the pace, but he's sitting back a little ways and just having a look, see what's happening up in front of him, because there's a lot of laps to go yet.
Now, what can a driver garner from following in practice like that? Because it seems like there's a lot of information that they could possibly pick up from that. And I'm getting word that we've got stuff going on in GS. What's happening out over there, Sean?
Well, Kimmo Suominen has gotten by Dan Rash with a excellent move. Just door to door for about 4 turns, and Bieri is right there in third, waiting to pounce on both of them. And they're through the bus stop right now, heading out. Everybody's nose to tail. Great racing up front, but Kimmo's taking it out front, and Dan is falling back a little bit. But great racing right here. Great just a really, really great race going on so far here early.
Now, I expect this could be an excellent opportunity for Bieri, who hasn't quite had the pace to keep up with these guys. And I know the draft is not as powerful for these Mustangs, Sean, but it seems like if Dan and Kim decide to duke it out a little bit, that Patrick might have an opportunity to stick with them and maybe pick up the pieces if something goes down.
Yeah, he just needs to stay close because, well, like we talked about in the pre-race, there's potential for them hooking up. I think we've seen already the potential is definitely there. They were door to door, like I said, for 4 laps, and Bieri is right there. And, you know, for that matter, the rest of the GS field is right there too. It hasn't spread out too much right yet, and I think we're going to see some pretty close racing here, at least in the early stages.
And we're also getting word that Randy Chineth is in the pits. Apparently he had a bit of a contact with the outside wall at the penultimate turn. Once again, like I said, that thing can bite you, so you got to watch out. Patrick Bieri is continuing to drop back a little bit at a time as we watch these leaders, so it looks like he definitely does not have the pace. Right behind him is Travis Mim, who is coming off an excellent race 2 weeks ago, Sean.
Yeah, he is, and you know, now would be a really good time for some of the slower guys to just follow these faster guys and start thinking about what types of changes they want to make when they get into the pits here to these cars. But we're off to a great start, and Kimmo is still out front and starting to pull away from the rest of the field. Dan's keeping it close, but it is starting to spread out a little bit.
Some more unfortunate news. It looks like Fred Masters is out of his car, so his damage does not seem to be repairable. Let's hop back a little bit ways down the field. I see that Alexis Molina has Tim Brokaw all over the back of him. In fact, Alexis goes defensive into the inner loop, and it looks like he's able to hold him off. Tim was not nearly close enough to try and make something happen there, but these two are very much nose to tail right now, Sean.
Yeah, they are, and here we go. They're coming through now, and it looks like they spread out a little bit, but we've got the teammates in front of them here. Look like they're working together. I guess that's Bailey and Auger, and well, they're not holding them up yet, but it's well, we're breaking hard into the turn, and no, there's still a little bit of space, but I think these cars are going to all work together here and try to make their way to the front because they're not pulling away yet.
Yeah, some action happening in ST, if I can butt in there. Right up front, we've got James, and followed by Stefan and Joshua Lloyd's butt. The battle is with Arthur Chan and Stefan Morien. They've just swapped places, with Stefan pulling off a daring move out of the carousel and down into the boot area. And he's got the position, and it's settled down again now, so back to you.
Now, we've seen that Stefan can be a pretty brave driver, Richard. He's pulled some great moves, especially in places like Daytona earlier this season. So that doesn't shock me too much to see him doing something like that. But it looks like he made a bit of a mistake, Richard, so Arthur's kind of climbing up on back to him.
Yeah, this is the battle. They're just looking behind them as Ed Voras. There's not much happening with Ed, but certainly I wanted to comment earlier that James Stevenson has decided he's not going to hang around. He passed Stefan Overgaard from second place into first, and he's starting to pull a gap on these two. Joshua Lloyds is trying to stick with Stefan Overgaard, but Stefan Overgaard is showing a bit of superiority, at least at this stage of the game. The other two are Stefan Morien and Arthur Chan. This is where the battle's going to develop, so I'll keep an eye on this one.
Now, Overgaard and Lloyds are kind of, they've got more at stake here than just track position. These two are tied for third, as we mentioned earlier. So this is pretty much, I mean, this is for second and third right here. So this is almost a direct metaphor of what's going on in the championship between these two guys being so close, Richard.
That's right. These guys want to, well, either one of them gets the better position. A first place would be nice, but of course James will have a lot to say about it. As we see Arthur Chan in the draft, coming up on the back of Stefan Morien, thinks the better of trying to do anything there, and backs off quite significantly and allows Stefan to get away. But getting back to that other situation, yep, whoever gets the better of the other here will have some extra points to add to his championship, and that could make a difference as they move towards the end of the season, Joe.
And I heard one driver mention there was a wreck in the boot over the radio. I'm not seeing it, but we'll keep an eye out for that. Yeah,
a couple more guys out of the car. I see Russell Clayson out of the car. Guys, what's happened there?
Well, let's check on Russell Clayson, see what exactly has gone on there. Maybe we can possibly get a replay, see what exactly went on. And we're looking at the replay now. As we can see, it looks like coming out of the boot, Russell just put a wheel off. So that was all Russell. He completely made a driver error at that point, and he thankfully escaped out before anybody could get into him, although I think the marshals were not happy that he rushed out quite so quickly. They do have a few rules about that in this league. So it looks like they're going to continue on with the green flag racing. Sad to see Russell out so quick, but I also see James Alex Brown is in the pits, so a lot of stuff is going on here. I did notice that we're getting word that Dan had a good draft on Kimmo Suominen earlier, but decided not to pass. And in fact, he's fairly close to the back of him at this point. Now, this is something that's going to come into play, Sean, is the timing of the passes. The draft can help, but if you don't time it just right, it might not help you.
No, you could stand to lose serious position if you don't set that up just right. You know, as I'm looking ahead here, we are starting to come up on slower traffic. We'll be to him here within the next 2 laps, so it will be interesting to see how these two cars, Suominen and Rash, start to move. You know, maybe Dan will try and run a pick and take that position back finally. But the top 4 are still pretty close to each other, and as they get to that slower traffic, I think we could see some changes in position, and a really good fight going on back there between 6th through 10th position.
In fact, we see two car tandems at this point. First and second being Kimmo and Dan, and then third and fourth being Patrick and Travis. So those guys are, as you said, are sticking pretty close to each other. Nothing really going on. Everybody's kind of playing patient because we're still early. But it is worth mentioning that we're about 25 minutes in, so in about 5 more minutes we're going to see the pit window open about a half hour into this race, Sean. So that's going to come into play as well. But the GS class seems to have settled down fairly at this point. I'm not seeing any battles really hardcore going on. Richard, what's the ST class looking like?
Well, the ST class is pretty much the same. James Stevenson is leading. Stefan Overgaard, his teammate, is behind him by a matter of a second and a half, maybe just a second. And then Joshua Leutz, he's hanging on to the back of Stefan, so this may well still develop into a battle a bit later on. Then we've got the other 2 guys in third and fourth and fifth, sorry, which is Stefan Morian and Arthur Chan. Now, Stefan Morian is creeping up slowly but surely onto the back of Joshua Leutz. And if he does get in amongst the guys up there, then we can start to see some action. But at the moment, just pretty much a nice, orderly procession, Joe.
Now I want to hop back to the battle for 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th because I'm going to eat my words here. There's quite 4 pack of cars very close together in the GS pack. That's Nicholas Bailey, Jonathan Auger, Alexis Molina, and Tim Brokaw, all within what looks like maybe a second and a half, maybe less than a second of each other. And now, Sean, these guys seem to be fighting pretty hard. Even though these are not the higher positions, these can still come into play in the championship. This is still worth points for these guys.
Yeah, it is. I see a lot of drafting going on right now. They're all working with each other. I really think their goal right now is speed. Get as much of it as they can. Try and get back towards the front. They're doing a great job. Not as much door to door as you would think, but like I said, right now it looks like they're focusing on draft. No one's really trying to overtake. They're just trying to stay in line, get around here as quick as they can. Try to get to that pit window, I think, to really set themselves up for a better second half of the race.
Yeah, pit strategy obviously coming into play already, as the guys are probably thinking about that in the cockpit. Now we're riding along with Tim Brokaw. You saw him took a little bit of a look on Alexis Molina a little bit earlier. He's dropped back just a little bit, but if you're looking through his windscreen, you're getting an idea of even half an hour in just how dirty that thing can get. Visibility can come into play, especially, I have to wonder, Sean, if him being behind Fred Masters at some point earlier might have caused a bit of that dirt and grime to show up.
Yeah, it did, and we've seen here in iRacing that that build-up, it doesn't take much. A little bit of smoke, a little bit of somebody spinning in front of you, whatever, can build that thing up pretty quick. But it does look like maybe we're going to jockey for position a little bit. Molina looks like he's ready to maybe make a move as they're coming down the straight here, and he's going to the inside as we're heading to the bus stop here, and he takes position.
Now that was a textbook move from Alexis, I have to say. Very cleanly through, and it cost Nicholas a lot of time, but since we're still in the first third of the race, that was probably smart to just kind of let it go and learn to fight another day. Seeing that we've got a little bit of a fight going on for P3, and it looks like Travis Mim has overtaken Patrick Bierria while they were off camera. So Travis Mim moving up in the world, Sean.
Yeah, and there he goes. He's on his way, and looks like Bierria has lost a spot to him. But, again, I think these two cars have been doing a little bit of the same here as they've been really drafting and just biding their time. I think everybody right now is biding their time, trying to get to that first pit stop. And speed is important, and the draft will help you here, especially on that long straight.
And I kind of wonder if some of these guys are going to start thinking about their fuel consumption as well, and that comes into play with the drafting as well. Hanging behind someone can allow you to lift just a little bit, spend just that little bit less of time. 1/10, 2/10, 3/10 of a gallon less that you take could help you jump someone and get that little bit of an advantage. But I don't see much going on between these guys at this point with that battle for third place, so I'm going to hand it over to Richard and see if he's got anything going on over the ST class.
Well, guys, we'll start by saying that Hiro Kanaya, he was the first of the ST classes to blink. In other words, he's gone into the pits and done his first pit stop, took 4 tires. He looks like he's got a little bit of damage. The big news is that Stefan Overgaard is closed right up on James Stevenson as they go through that sweeping left-hander. He makes a bit of a mess of that one, and James jumps out a little bit, but he is closed right up. And Joshua Leutz, on the other hand, is closed right up on Stefan Overgaard. Stefan Morien looking to get to grips with these guys. He's not that far back, so I think that just before the pit stops, these guys are going to tighten up, and we may well see some action. So I'll be watching, Joe.
And we understand that Randy Chineth is waiting around outside the booth, so maybe we can drag him in here in a second and get a few words from him as we continue to watch these battles up in the ST class, and see if we can get a word from him, especially about his contact with the wall, what exactly happened there. So while we wait for him to be dragged into the booth as we send Kevin out to go get him, I'm looking at Stefan Overgaard. I know you said that James had made a bit of mistake, but I'm still shocked to see that Stefan has held on as well as he had.
No, it was the other way around. He was much closer to James in the previous lap, and he made a small mistake which gave James a bit of a break. He's starting to catch up now again. I said it at the beginning of the broadcast that I thought that Stefan was a little bit more consistent here than James was. Their speed is pretty much the same, and as you can see now, he's closing up slowly but surely on James once again. Meanwhile, Joshua Leutz is behind Stefan. He drops back a little bit, probably not through his own fault, just through the pace of Stefan, and then manages to catch up again. So it's pretty tight here. Stefan Morien is chasing hard to stay with these other 3 in front of him. So I believe that he will be in the mix sooner or later. Arthur Chan, on the other hand, in 4th place, has fallen back quite a bit, so he's not in it at the moment, but once the pit stops take place, he probably might be once again. So we'll see how it all pans out, Joe.
Well, while we've got a break in the action, since no one's really fighting too hard at the moment, let's pull Randy into here and get a few words from here. Randy, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. How's it going?
Randy, it looks like you had a premature end to your race. From what we understand, you had a little bit of contact with the wall.
I wouldn't call it a little bit of contact. I'd call it a lot of bit of contact. But yeah, in the second to last corner, I clipped the inside curb, which kicked the car loose. Had it just about saved when it straddled the outside curb and the grass, which kicked the car way to the left again, and it oversteered to the right, and then went straight into the wall.
We're sad to see you're not out there fighting up with the top guys. What are the conditions out like on the track at the moment? Judging from that first accident, it seems like things are a tad bit greasy.
Yeah, it's pretty warm. I don't think the accident was really a thing of the conditions. I think it was just a racing incident. I didn't really look at the replay to see who was really at fault. Just looked like light contact. It happened right in front of me, so yeah. One person or the other is too much fault for us to take a look at it. But the conditions is pretty hot. The track surface is pretty hot, and at least in the Mustang, lap times are going to drop really fast. You can only get about a couple laps going at about optimal speed, and then start losing about 3-4 tenths per lap because of how hot it is, and the front tires just die.
Well, thanks for coming and talking to us. We're going to hop back to the action. If you don't mind, we'd love to have you stick around and maybe ask you a few technical questions here or there about what your thoughts on these cars are. But hopefully you'll have a better race in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Indy, and yeah, I'll stick around if you have any questions.
Awesome stuff. Well, Richard, we've been keeping an eye on this battle between Stefan, or sort of battle between Stefan and James, and Stefan's closed right back up to him. Now, these two guys are teammates. I think we've mentioned that a few times before. What kind of team tactics do you think are going on under the hood?
Well, let me just, before we get to that, just say that I'm just looking at the times between these two guys. So, James Stevenson's fastest time in this race so far has been a 2:14.072. Stefan has done a 2:13.9. So Stefan is, well, certainly his fastest lap. Sorry, we're hearing some information. Go ahead.
Sounds like Josh Loitz has hit the wall. I'm trying to get a view on him. Yes, I see him now. He is going very slowly, so obviously he's quite damaged. We're going to go look at the replay for that and see what exactly happened to him. Coming around through turn 9 or turn 10, depending on who you ask, that slippery corner just puts a wheel off and into the inside wall. A lot of guys have done that over the years, so I mean driver error, but that's going to happen to people. So Josh Loitz is probably going to be, yes, he's headed into the pits, so he's going to get that damage repaired. Let's hop back to the action and see what's going on up at the front once again. I'm sorry, you were talking about James and Stefan, Richard.
That is correct. So at the moment, Stefan is very close to James. Team tactics may come into play at the moment. Stefan, I think these guys watch each other. If the one makes a mistake or slows down, the other one will take over. But at the moment, James certainly is through the bus stop. He's really good through the bus stop there. Stefan just made a little whoopsie, and he's just fallen back a little bit. And I've noticed that happening in a couple of different laps. I'm very sad about the fact that Joshua Loitz hit the wall there, because I was hoping that he would get to grips with Stefan and we'd have a little battle, but that has not been the case. So at the moment we're in processional mode. Stefan Morien now in third place. He's a little way back from Stefan. Yeah, two Stefans, it gets confusing. So Stefan Overgaard is in second place in the blue car, and Stefan Morien in the very colorful red, white and black car, he is in third place. He's a little way back, and I don't think, Joe, that he's got the pace to keep up with these two guys in front.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's really been making much ground, although he hasn't lost too much time, so he's still within touching distance if something happens. And of course, obviously, if a yellow comes about, then he's right back on the back of these guys. Now, Christopher Thompson is in the pits at the moment. I believe that is a normal pit stop for him unless we miss an accident. He's just left the pits now, so he's heading back on out. Things seem to be starting to kick off. And Kimo and Dan should be catching traffic soon, from what I understand. So what's going on between those two guys, Sean?
Well, they have been running very close together, nose to tail, running really fast laps right now. I don't think. Dan looks like he's making a move to the inside. Here we go. No, he backs off a little bit, gives a little bit there. I don't think they're close to a pit yet. Maybe it's about 10 more laps. But the really interesting race right now is going on back still that 6th through 9th position. I'm starting to think that maybe those guys should start thinking about a double stint, maybe hoping for a caution, and this time coming in for just fuel, and then maybe waiting on those tires, and again hoping for a caution might be their best chance at making a run at these guys up front, because they are pulling away slowly but surely.
A double stint would be very unusual for CESCS. Usually it's a single pit strategy that's the best way to go. But, I mean, we have seen it happen in an unplanned situation, such as Dan Rash back at Barber, where he went on to win the race. So it's not unheard of, but I'd be really shocked if one of these guys employed something like that. But yeah, these guys have really been keeping it close, and I see that there was a bad exit for Alexis Molina. Tim Brokaw's got a good run coming down the front straightaway towards turn 1. Is he going to be able to outbrake him? He's got Jonathan Auger up in front of him to worry about, not try to run into those to him in the process. They get through there 2x2 pretty successfully as Alexis goes wide, but he gets back without much incident. They're going to stay side by side as they come through the S's. Eventually, they're going to have to slot in single file here. Something's going to happen. Alexis is still trying to hold on, and he's got the inside through this left-hander, but he's not going to have enough, and this is probably going to seal the deal as they come to the backstretch here, Sean.
Yeah, that almost didn't work out well. We almost had an incident there. And it seems a little strange that they'd get squirrely now when they've been pretty patient here for many laps, and quite frankly, they still have just under an hour to go, so there's still a ways to go here.
Well, let's jump back up to the lead battle, because I'm getting word from our spotters that Dan made a little bit of contact yet again with Kimmo Suominen. 14 laps in, it only took us till 39 minutes for him to finally decide he's going to make physical contact yet again. But he's not particularly close at this moment, but it could all change because they're coming up to lap traffic of their same class, and that is, who is that?
Denny
That is
Locke.
actually Denny Locke, yes, thank you. Denny Locke, who they had just passed by, so something must have happened to Danny at some point along the way. But yeah, it's starting to get physical yet again between these two drivers, and I'm trying to get some word from our spotter, see what's going on. Oh, actually, I see that Fred Masters is waiting in the wings. We might be able to bring him in to talk to him. So if we get a chance, let's pull him in and ask him about the accident, what he saw. Actually, let's pull him in now while we're waiting for things to heat up between Dan and Kimmo as they come to the first corner. Fred, can you hear us? See if it doesn't seem to have a word from Fred quite yet. While we wait for him to get his microphone set up, we'll continue to watch this battle between Dan and Kimmo as Dan starts to close up, coming towards the back straightaway. Draft seems to be helping him fairly well, Sean, here as he comes down towards the inner loop. I don't know if he's going to have an opportunity, though.
And there's a couple of cars in front of both of them battling as well. That's Tom Ecklein and I believe David Wammond. So that's going to mix things up a little bit, as well as Dan comes right onto the back of Kimmo once again. Doesn't hit him this time. Goes next to him. Sorry, guys, I'm taking over here. Back to you, Sean.
No, that's okay. Good battle, and there's the pick right there. And Suominen is back in the lead.
Yeah, David did nothing wrong there. He was just kind of an innocent bystander, but very good thinking from Kimmo to really utilize that other car as they're coming up to Thompson right now as they come to the toe of the boot, and it looks like Thompson's going to move out of the way. They're still staying side by side, and it looks like Dan gets very close to Thompson on the exit of that corner.
Ecklein it is.
Oh, I'm sorry, that is Ecklein, actually. Thank you for that correction. And I'm surprised that Dan was able to keep up with Kimmo, that even going side by side there, Sean, I would think that his exit would be compromised.
Yeah, Dan's just fast, period. I mean, he's so good, so smooth. I think a lot has to do with his ability to just wheel a car, and that's how he's able to just keep that speed. But as we see, nothing lost. He's still right there on Kimmo's bumper and ready to make another move. But that traffic came into play for sure.
All right, we're going to hop on board with Dan Rash here and give you a view of what the battle for first and second is like. This is always a good one to see inside these guys' cars. Now, Dan follows him down the front straightaway right now. You see he's not too far behind. And as far as the interview with Fred goes, real quick, we had some technical difficulties. We're going to work on trying to get him back in here very soon. Kimo goes very wide. He's very much utilizing that exit on turn 1. It can be very important, Sean, to really use as much of that runoff as you can so that you aren't vulnerable down this front straightaway. I'm sorry,
Right.
back straightaway.
Yeah, down the back straight, right. And, as they get down that back straightaway, we've got another car here.
Yeah,
Might
Ed
be another
Voras.
opportunity. Yeah, Voras, that might be another chance here for Dan to make another move as they head into the bus stop now.
And Voras goes
Voras
completely off. He might have an accident here. He just brushes the tire wall. He's coming back onto the track. How damaged is he? It looks like he's going to be able to continue on, although he might have some suspension damage. Let's go back to the lead between Dan and Kimo as Dan gets very close. He's going to take a look at the inside. Coming into this corner, they might touch. Oh, they get very close. Kimo goes wide to give him just a little bit of space, and now Dan has the first position, Sean.
There we go. Dan back to the front. And he used, his opportunity there with Voras. Poor Voras, I think he looked in his mirror and got a little nervous.
And
He
Kim
sure
is going to
did.
try and Kimo's going to try and come back at him as they come out of the toe of the boot, but he didn't have quite a good enough run, so he's not going to have an outbraking opportunity. Let's go back to Patrick Bieri, though, because I understand that there's a great battle going on between himself and Mim as they go through traffic.
Absolutely, guys, and you've got Tom Eckline once again, and ahead of him,
I'm sorry,
I think
Tom
that-
Eckline actually made contact with Mim there. It doesn't seem like it was too bad, but this has allowed Steve Brown to close up on them. I'm sorry, Richard.
That's okay. That's okay. It's GS that we're talking about. We now have, who is that? Ed Voras. Yes, Ed Voras in front of the ST guy, Travis Mim. The GS guy. And now they both Bieri passes as well safely, so that battle can continue.
If Brown can actually get by Eckline here as he goes around the outside of Voras, he's going to be able to clear Eckline very easily on the front straightaway. But I was about to say, if he could just get by in that corner, he'd be able to keep touch with these guys. Brown is currently sitting in 5th in that orange and black car, and I'd really like to see him kind of get up into this battle, especially after that close call early on. He's fairly good at this course, as we saw last season, and I think if he could just pull it together, he could be in the fight for 3rd, Sean.
Yeah, well, he's got to keep pressing here, and using that traffic to his advantage. I'm looking up front here, and we've still got Dan and Kimo fighting it out, but Dan is still in the lead, and he's hitting his marks, and it's going to be tough for Kimo to get back around.
And Christopher Thompson had a bit of an accident coming into the S's. He took a hard slam into the outside barrier, and he is currently going very slow in the grass. I don't think this is going to be a caution as he's staying out of everybody's way at the moment. And the marshals are directing him to an exit point, and he is just going to pull out of the car. So bad day for Christopher Thompson, Richard.
Yes, I'm just looking at him as we speak. He's just taken the toll, so he'll be heading back into the pits. Ed Voras is in the pits. They both have damage. Ed Voras we spoke about just earlier in the bus stop, getting really wide and then hitting the wall there. So he's in the pits getting some repairs. Joe, we should be somewhere close to the pit window right now. Ed Voras just leaving the pits once again. We've had, 46 minutes so far. That's halfway. So people should be starting to think at least about their pit stops right now.
Well, your two teammates,
James
Stevenson.
comes in. James and
there you go.
Stefan both come into the pits as I'm speaking. So we seem to know these cars pretty well. They spot on halfway. They're both in the pits. Everyone else stays out. So we have Arthur Chan and who's the other one? Stefan Morian staying out of the guys who are behind them. So this is very interesting as things shake out now.
And we hear that Fred Masters seems to have gotten things sorted out, so let's pull him back in here, see if we can get some words from him. Fred, can you hear us this time? Looks like we might still have a few problems with Fred. Give him a few more seconds to sort things out while we watch battle between Dan Rash and Kimo Swamin and continue on here. And, is that you? Is Fred here yet?
Yeah, I'm here now.
There you are. Fred, it was a very short race for you, it seems like. What went on from your point of view? Because you took a hard lick.
Yeah, I only made it a couple turns. The start was good on through 1, and then when we were going up through the S's there, I just saw everybody braking, and I tried to check up and hop to the outside, and I think it was German was on his roof, and I hit him, and then bounced off the wall and got hit a few more times.
Well, we're sad to see that you aren't able to continue on fighting, but hopefully you'll be able to get a little bit better results 2 weeks from now at Indianapolis. How do you fancy that track?
I haven't run too much there, so I'm going to get some practice in here over the next 2 weeks, and I'll be back for that one. A little disappointing because this is the first race I've done this season so far, but I'll be back for Indy in 2 weeks and hopefully make it a little bit further.
Well, we look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for coming and talking to us.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Well, I did notice a car off track. It was an MX-5 in the toe of the boot. I couldn't quite see who it was, but he exited out. Might have been Christopher Thompson, but I'm not totally sure. It looks like he is out of the car. So, Richard, something happened to Christopher Thompson along the way.
Yeah, I didn't exactly see what happened to him, but certainly he's right out of the car at the moment. So he, at this point in time, not taking part in the race any longer. We'll see if it was just a tow that he's taken or whether he comes back in. We did just quickly mention, I should mention that both Stefan Overgaard and James Stevenson completed their pit stops, and they back out and circulating once again. James Stevenson still in first place. He came back out in first place, and Stefan came back out in second place. So these guys, you know, they doing it pretty easy at the moment. I think the only race is between the two of them at the moment, Joe.
And I'm sorry to jump around so much, but our director's probably not happy with me, but Patrick Bieri is very close to Steve Brown, or rather the reverse. Something happened to Patrick Bieri along the line. Sean, did you see what happened?
Actually, they both just pitted together and just came out together.
So interesting. I guess Steve Brown obviously has a little bit of a better pit strategy, or at least a better crew out there. Managed to get out and undercut Bieri, but not quite enough to get by him. But the race seems to be on now, Sean.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, you know, we've still got Rash and Swamanen out there. They haven't pitted yet. They're going to need to, because as far as I know, there's only about 48 minutes in the tank on those Mustangs. So they're pushing it right now.
So I guess it's very close on fuel in the Mustangs from what it sounds like. And I've seen word that Rash actually hit the wall. I'm sorry, go ahead, Richard.
No, I was just watching these guys go up through the S's. I'm talking about Steve Brown and Patrick Bieri. Steve Brown got really, really close to poor old Philip Carpenter, trying to keep out of the way. But it all ended up safely, so that's good.
Yeah, we'll stick with this, but real quick, we got word that Dan Rash had contact with the wall fairly hard. He's still in the lead, and there's not much of a gap change between, so we'll have to keep an eye, see if he incurred any damage from that. But let's stick with this battle between Patrick Bieri and Steve Brown, currently for 7th and 8th, but they have pitted, so they are off strategy at the moment, not racing with any of the guys around them besides each other. Now, Steve Brown, he's not had the best of luck in this series, Sean. And I'm sorry, real quick, it sounds like Kimmo Suominen is into the pits.
Yes, Kimmo Suominen, if I can just jump in there, is coming to his pit stall as we speak. So Dan Rash still out there. Leading the race. Looks like he didn't pick up too much damage from whatever occurred to him a little while ago, but Kimmo in the pits right now, and the battle continuing between Steve Brown and Patrick Bieri.
Yeah, I don't see much damage on Dan's car at all. He's got a little bit on the right front over the fender, and that's about it. But yeah, Kimmo's still in this pit and should be making his way out here any second. I am really surprised they didn't go together, but that's the strategy we've been talking about.
Could be that Dan just is trying to get a little bit away from Kimmo at this point, get some laps without having to worry about him behind him. Now let's take a look now that Kimmo's exiting. Where exactly is Patrick and Steve Brown? They are just coming into turn 1, so there is a huge gap between these guys. Not much gained as far as those two. Although I see that Steve Brown has started to gain a bit on Patrick.
Yeah, but Patrick seems to be able to just pull out when he needs to, as they come up once again on, I think that is Stefan Morien. Yes, he moves to the outside and allows him to get by. Steve is in an attacking position at this point in time. Let's see what he does as they approach the bus stop. Very risky to try anything here, though, Joe.
Real quick, other side note, Dan Rash did get balked by Ed Verras in the chute, so that could have slowed his lap time around, and Kimo could undercut him depending on if he loses any more or if he pits right now. I'm guessing he won't want to go in. But yeah, with this battle between these guys, it seems like a chess match like we're used to seeing between Dan and Kimo, Sean. Not a lot of action going on, but just quietly stalking, waiting for that mistake to happen as we see Bieri go a little bit wide as Steve now closes up on him. And what did I just say? Steve's got a good run. He's going to try and look to the inside, but he slots back in. And now they've got Eckline coming up in front of them, so there could be a pick. Nope. Looks like they're able to get by cleanly before the corner comes, and Steve Brown isn't able to capitalize, Sean.
Yeah, not quite. It was really close. He had a run. More traffic in front, though, so anything can happen here. But they are running really, really close, and Steve is ready to take that position.
And Dan Rash is in the pits, guys, as far as we see, and also in ST Arthur Chan in the pits, who was leading for a little while. He's got a few laps led next to his name, so it'll be over soon, all the pit stops, and then it'll be a race to the finish.
And Steve is continuing to just hold on to the back of Bieri as they come up to the car of David Wamband as they're going around him down the front straightaway. Once again, Steve not quite close enough. So let's check in on Dan Rash and see now that he has exited. Where is Kimo Suominen? Kimo is ahead of him, so Kimo has jumped Dan in the pits.
Absolutely. And now Dan's got it all to do. His car seems to be okay, which is good. It would have been a bit tragic if Dan had to fall out through damage. But it remains to be seen whether he can catch Kimo now, because even the slightest damage on these cars will have an effect over the longer term.
And in between them, they've got Nicholas Bailey, who has yet to pit. So he could get in the middle of things here, as Dan is actually starting to close up a little bit on Kimo coming through the carousel here. But, you know, this could actually throw a whole nother wrench into this craziness going on here, Sean.
Yeah, well, Kimo was 2 seconds faster on his pit stop, so obviously that made a big difference. And, you know, Dan having a little bit of trouble there, I think we're going to see... I think Kimo's going to pull away, because I think Dan is going to have to fight that damage, because he didn't take any time to repair. So this could be interesting for sure.
Now, guys, just let me break in here. We got Dan coming up on the ST leader. We've got another car just passing. That was Nicholas Bailey. That was Dan Rash passing Nicholas Bailey. He's right up on the back of James Stevenson as they go into that left-hand hairpin. What's he going to do? He's been known to make contact. I believe he did make some contact with James there, Joe.
Yes, he ran into the back of James, unfortunately, just got a little too close, and I see damage on the front of Dan's car. I can't make out if there's damage on the back of James. We'll have to take a look at that, but that's really going to...
No.
That could affect Dan down the straightaways. I found it interesting that Nicholas backed off and let him by as Nicholas actually goes into the pits now. He obviously was off strategy, so he didn't want to lose time trying to fight him. But it definitely looks like Dan has lost time in this fight with James here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if James is a little bit unhappy about that. Although no damage done by the looks of it. I'm looking at the back of his car. It all seems to be okay. He's not losing any speed. But Dan, I have to say, good driver though he is known for making contact with slower cars.
He really is. He's had a number of run-ins, not just this season, but last season, when there was a bit of miscommunication between himself and Ayrton Ellis, although that was partly Ayrton's fault, we have to say, so it wasn't completely on Dan. And then he ran into, I believe it was Ed Verras last season at Lime Rock Park, and still managed to go on and win that one. But both times taking significant damage. So this one, especially with the track that's so fast, it's going to slow him down. And he's already behind Kimo. In fact, it looks like he's losing time, Sean. So this could be a race-sealing deal for Kimo if he can keep it straight. Yeah,
this is a fortunate turn of events for Kimo, because Dan is definitely losing pace. Now, Travis Mim is still out on the track and currently being shown in the lead. So interesting to see what he's going to do here, and he should be any time now, and how that's going to play for him.
Now, we've still got Randy hanging around, so I'm going to pull him back in here real quick. Randy, you've been racing Dan for less than a season now, but you've had some time to get a feel for what he's like on the track. And we've got a caution, so we'll have to figure out what exactly happened. But real quick, Randy, I mean, what are your thoughts on Dan's aggressiveness? Do you feel like he needs to kind of rein it in, or do you think it's understandable with him always being fighting for the lead?
I think it's understandable. I mean, I've ran hard with him. I've ran with him in the official series as well, where it's just the Mustangs. And other people have, Kimo have, a couple other people that I know that don't run in this series. And Dan's aggressive, but he's not dirty by any means. So I don't think, I mean, a lot of people that are aggressive and they don't know how to keep it off the cars. I think the incident we just saw with Dan, I think Dan was expecting James to keep the inside while he tried to go around the outside. So, but I don't know. I don't think Dan has that big of a problem with aggressiveness at all.
Interesting viewpoint on that, and I guess us in the booth don't really have the perspective of running up at the front quite as much like that. You're watching the replay of Hiro Kanai, who got off track, and unfortunately David Whammond, who was having a very good race, ran into him, had nowhere to go. Neither car at fault. That was just a racing incident. We're going to go to break as they let the yellow run through. I'm assuming anybody who hasn't pitted is going to pit now as they cycle through. So we're going to see you on the other side. Enjoy the music during the break. Welcome back. We are over an hour into this race at Watkins Glen with the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. Currently, Kimmo Suominen is leading the GS class with Dan Rash close behind, although with a fair bit of damage on his front end. Steve Brown is currently in third, so having moved up somewhere around there, he got by Patrick Bieri, who is in fourth, and then Travis Mim is in fifth. What's the top five in ST, Richard?
Well, we have James Stevenson leading the ST class. He's followed by Stefan Overgaard. And then we have Stefan Morien in third place now, with Arthur Chan in fourth place, and Philip Carpenter, not a name we used to calling in the race. He is in a fifth place at this point on my screen. There are some GS cars passing, as the rule is that all the GS class will start in front of the ST class on a restart. So that's just taking place as we speak. Ed Voras is also out there, and he seems to be behind, even though it's not showing on the screen. Philip Carpenter is supposed to be in, well, Philip Carpenter is in front of him. There he is. So that's your top five, top six, and we're getting ready for a restart. So back to you, Joe.
Yeah, we're getting close. We're in the toe of the boot right now, so we still got a little bit of time. There's been a lot of talk while we were gone here in the booth about the proper etiquette of trying to pass the opposite class and whatnot. For those not used to mixed class racing, Sean, what exactly, I mean, tell us a little bit about what goes on between these two classes and what it can cause, like what are the frustrations it can cause between them?
Well, sure. I mean, we've seen it already in this race here. You know, obviously, if you're in the lead and you're coming up on slower traffic, you can use that slower traffic to your advantage by setting up what we call a pick and gaining an advantage on the rest of the field. Now, for the slower guys, as we saw with Voris earlier, it can be a little intimidating when you see someone coming up on you in your mirror that fast. You know, what do? Do you move to the side, move off, or do you stay in it and hope they don't wreck you out? So there's some give and take there. As the slower class, you've got to be willing to give and finish the race, and the best way to do that is to get out of the way.
Gone to green.
And Kimmo is leading them away. Dan is very close. Steve Brown has got a pretty good run, and he's actually staying very close with him. In fact, all four cars, they're starting to go side by side as Dan looks around the outside of turn one, isn't able to do anything, and it looks like Steve Brown didn't get a good enough exit, which is going to allow Patrick Bieri to get up behind him. He checks up because he has nowhere to go, and that means that the top five are all going to be almost nose to tail as Travis Mim is getting into the mix now. So up through the S's they go. Is Dan going to be able to try anything with that front end damage? The draft is going to allow him to get up, but once he tucks out, and it looks like Kimmo Suominen is going very defensive. Dan goes to the outside, coming to the inner loop. This is a pass for the lead and the GS class and the overall. They make contact once again. They cut across the course. Kimmo gets back on. Dan has to go off to the side, and he gets a slowdown penalty, and it looks like so Kimmo will too. Steve Brown takes advantage of it, and Steve Brown is into the lead, Sean.
Yes, he is, and just sitting there waiting. And here comes Bieri, too. Bieri is up to second, and actually everybody's going by Suominen right now.
Yes, I'm pretty sure he got a slowdown from cutting the course. So did Dan Rash, who is way down there, much farther down than Kimmo is, it looks like. Kimmo lost a number of positions, he's going to have to work his way back up. This played perfectly into Steve's hands. It's just like you were talking about earlier in the race about waiting patiently for something to happen between these guys.
Yeah, and it looks like Kimmo is pretty upset because he just drove it a little hard in the turn, got a little loose coming off, and here we go. He's driving it deep again right here, and a little aggressive. He's going to have to watch it because, you don't want to get into that car in front of you because it could end the day for both of you.
Yes, after all that action, everybody's very backed up, and it looks like Nicholas Bailey is getting passed by Dan Rash coming through that corner right there. Coming up to the penultimate corner, they're still side by side. They won't want to stay that way for this one. Nicholas is going to have to give it up, and Dan gives him enough room, thankfully. So Dan has lost some contact with Kimo, but he's probably going to be able to get up to him soon here because Kimo is trying to fight with Mim, who is on the back of Patrick Bieri, and that is for second and third between those two. Mim decides to pop out. He's going to try and outbrake Bieri coming into turn one. That's definitely possible, but they're going to slow each other up, which is going to give an opportunity for Kimo. Is he going to be able to outgun them coming up towards the S's? Mim was not able to do it on Bieri, but now that is allowed a run for Kimo as he gets up side by side. They get very close coming through that left-hander. It's going to switch back to, or I'm sorry, right-hander. It's going to switch back to the left. They make a little bit of contact, and they get a little bit of squirrely. They both hold on to it, coming to the next right-hander onto the back straightaway, and Kimo looks like he's able to get it done, Sean.
Yeah, well, they're still working at it, and you know Brown is pulling away. He's taking advantage of this fight back there, and he's moving on up. But yeah, they're still fighting. Kimo has made the pass,
and Dan is now getting up side by side with Mim. He looked for an opportunity with Mim being slowed down into the inner loop. He's going to be on the outside coming into the chute here. I don't think he's going to be able to do it. It's very hard to get grip around the outside of that corner, but he's going to try the switchback, which is going to put him on the wrong side for the toe of the boot, and he didn't quite get a good enough run, so he's going to have to slot back into line. It's not over yet. Dan has definitely got the speed over Travis, so as he packs up the cars behind him, I don't think it's going to take him too long to try and find a way by.
Yeah,
well,
no.
guys, let me jump in here and
Go ahead,
say
Rich.
that there is another class running as well, and that's the ST class. Their restart was pretty hot as well while we were talking about the battle that was going up in the GS class. James Stevenson did get away smartly, followed by Stefan Overgaard. But now we have Stefan Morien on the back of Stefan Overgaard. And for a while, Arthur Chan was in that battle as well. So the top three are pretty close together with Arthur Chan not that far away. Back to you guys.
Well, we've got about 23 minutes left on the clock, so Steve Brown, even though he has the lead, he's going to have to hold off some faster cars because it looks like Kimo Suominen has actually put in a move on Patrick Bieri coming into turn one. He's going to try and outbrake him. He's not quite to the inside of him. Bieri gives him a little bit of leniency just in case. As now Bieri loses it coming out of the exit, and that means that Kimo is on by without much effort. So now it's down to Kimo just running down Steve Brown. Like I said before, 23 minutes that he's got to hold on to this thing. Do you think he can do it, Sean?
The battle is right behind them, guys.
Dan Rash has crashed, apparently, and it's in the S's, similar almost to where he crashed last season, which was on the back straightaway. What exactly happened? Let's check out the replay on that. It looks like he was coming up on the back of Mim, who was looking on the inside of Bieri. He just touched Mim, and then made contact again, and that tipped Dan into the wall, and that was it. Onto his lid he goes, and manages to get back on without hitting anybody else. I think his race is over. He's heavily smoking. So, wow, it's not been a good season for Dan, I'd have to say, Sean.
No, it's not. The smoking jacket is out and on, and we are in the pits with Dan here, and it does not look good. I don't think he's going to finish this one today.
Well, this, however, helps Kimo Suominen, who is going to close up on the back of Steve Brown because of this caution. It'll be impressive to see what happens on the restart between these two. I'm sorry, we've kind of been neglecting the ST class, Richard. It sounded like a lot was going on back there. I mean, what's the update back in the ST guys?
Well, you know, they were not as exciting to watch, obviously, as the guys up front there. But I'm glad to see Steve Brown leading a few laps, and it remains to be seen whether Kimo can catch him. But we have James Stevenson still in the lead. He was challenged quite strongly at one point. Now, interestingly, and I've missed it, it seems like we have Stefan Overgaard behind Stefan Morien. So somewhere along the line during all that melee, it seems that Stefan Morien passed Stefan Overgaard because he's in second place as we speak, and it'll be interesting to see what happens when they restart here, because there will most definitely be a battle going on.
And just behind then, It looks like Arthur Chan is in 4th, so he stayed in the mix fairly well, and I think we're getting some information on what happened between the pass between Stefan and Stefan. It looks like it was a pass in turn 1, so that's what we're hearing. We'll have to go back and take a look at that. That had to have been a very opportunistic run from Maurienne. He's been doing a fairly good job, I have to say, Richard, for managing to work himself up into 2nd. He seems to be a very opportunistic driver. He's not always really up there, but when something happens where it's like you got one chance to do it, he seems to really go for it.
Oh yes, oh yes. Stefan Maurienne is not the shyest of drivers. If you've driven alongside him or with him in other races, you will know that he's very, very straightforward. I like the guy. And what's happened here is that Stefan Overgaard probably made a small mistake, and whammo, we have a 2nd place taken by Stefan Maurienne. So don't think that it's over. I mean, Stefan Overgaard, I think, is faster than Stefan Maurienne. So it remains to be seen whether Stefan Maurienne can hold on to that 2nd place, because I think that Stefan Overgaard is going to challenge him very strongly. Watching just before the yellow flag came out, Arthur Chan wasn't able to keep up with these guys, so I don't know if he's got something left in the tank for the last few laps, but if he has, he better pull it out, because these guys are not going to hang around waiting for him to do something.
Well, while we're waiting for this caution to go away, we still have 20 minutes left, so we should go back to green, and we'll be back before the race is over. But we're going to take a quick break while they sort out the waiver rounds and whatnot, and then we'll see it when they go green again. Welcome back to Watkins Glen International. We are watching the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, and we are in the final moments with less than 15 minutes left to go in this race. We are under caution, but we're going to go back to green very soon here, and then it'll be a race to the finish pretty much, as long as they don't go yellow again. The last caution, unfortunately, was caused by a wreck with Dan Rash, who is with us in the booth. Dan, what can you tell us about what happened? I mean, we got to look at it, but from your viewpoint, what went down?
Well, coming out of turn one, Travis was in front of me and then Patrick in front of him. Patrick goofed turn one a bit, so he slowed up quite a bit. I had a pretty good run on Travis because I had a better exit through turn one, and I didn't want to let it go. Coming up through the S's, Travis ended up coming to the back of Patrick, and I gave him a little nudge with the run that I had to let him know that I wanted by and to make room for me. I put my car on the inside, and I had about a bumper's width inside. But Travis came inside and unfortunately knocked me into the wall.
We also saw on camera that crazy battle with Chemo coming into the inner loop with you guys going off. Did you expect him to fight so hard for that? Or it seemed like you guys both wanted the corner too hard and it just didn't go how either wanted.
That's basically exactly how I expected it was going to end. This is, in my opinion, the easiest car on the easiest track in iRacing. It's the road equivalent of a Daytona or a Talladega oval race. And so it's basically a draft battle. And whenever you make a pass, it's very, very tight pickings. And so I figured it would be either a very, very close race or it would end in a crash.
Well, that unfortunately, that last prediction seems to have come true. We're sad to see you out. We like seeing you fight up front, but will we see you in 2 weeks' time at Indianapolis?
Oh, most definitely.
Awesome. Well, feel free to stick around. We might ask you some questions about the cars and whatnot, but we'll talk to you hopefully in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, I'd be up for some chatting. My car's done for the day, so I can't do much else. Thanks, guys.
No problem. Well, we are almost back to green, guys, so the lights are out on the pace car. Steve Brown is leading them around. James Stevenson is leading them around. Stefan Moriane is in second place with Stefan Beauregard behind them in the ST class, Richard, so some real opportunistic stuff there, as we mentioned earlier. They're getting ready to go green. This has been kind of a crazy race. Do you guys think we'll actually manage to stay green?
I think so. I believe that it's all up for grabs now, but to win the race you've got to make a pass stick and make it clean. Otherwise, there may not be another opportunity if another green comes out. Another yellow comes out. So, well, fingers crossed. Anyway, let's hope it stays green.
I apparently share a booth with a couple of optimists here. Both of you seem very positive about that. I guess I'm just not quite so confident in these guys. Pace car is about to take off as they're going green right now. Let's see if Kimo will make a better start than he did at Road Atlanta. Green flag waves and Steve Brown takes off. It looks like Patrick Bieri got a really good one there as he's taking a look on Kimo, who is going defensive, or maybe he's just taking a look on Steve Brown. They might go 3 wide. It's 2 wide as Mim looks on the outside of Bieri coming through turn 1. Good exit for both Brown and Kimo, so it's going to be a straight fight for those guys for the rest of this race with about 10 minutes left to go. Bieri manages to hold on to third, though, Sean.
Yeah, here we go. And of course, we've got Mim right there, too, on Bieri's bumper. But Kimo, here we go. He's coming up in the draft behind Steve now. Is he going to make a move going into the bus stop?
It looks like Brown goes back to the line, so he felt confident enough that Kimo was not close enough. Or it could be that he thinks maybe Kimo's going to wait till the end to do it, because it could be a case of trying to snipe him. He's staying right on the bumper of that black and orange Petrel Data Systems car, so he is hanging with it. Bieri is losing a little bit of contract, and so is contact. Meanwhile, let's hop back to ST. What's going on back there, Richard?
Well, the start was predictable with James Stevenson leading them off, but we had Stefan Moriane challenging very strongly in the draft leading up to the bus stop. He did think the better of trying to make a passing attempt into the bus stop, and that's given James the chance to move ahead again, and I don't think James is going to give him another opportunity, or maybe not. We'll wait and see what happens there. But We
It
do
looks
have
like
Stefan
here goes
Morien in a
Kimmo.
very good second
I'm
place.
sorry, we've got a battle for the lead in GS, and Kimmo made an attempt coming into the heel of the boot, but he wasn't able to do it. He pulled out of the move. Steve Brown has held on to first, and Kimmo's still into it, Sean, but it looks like he's trying to get a good exit coming out of this second or third to last corner here, and wasn't quite enough. Not really a passing zone into this penultimate corner anyways, so Kimmo is on the charge, Sean.
Steve is on the wheel. I mean, he is up on the wheel right now and fighting hard. He knows time is running out here, and he's got a great chance to be at the top of that podium. All he's got to do is hold Kimmo off for maybe another 2 laps, and this thing is over.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll have to see if our stats man can get on this, I'm pretty sure that Steve Brown has not won a race since Season 2. He didn't even win a race at all last season, despite being up fighting for it multiple times and being in it for the race for Watkins Glen last season. Kimmo is right on the back of that orange and black car yet again, and he has got the draft, and now it looks like Bieri had a very good exit because he is now closing up on these guys. It could be a 3-way battle for the lead. Steve Brown decides to hold the middle of the road. He's making that car as wide as he can as they come to the inner loop. Kimmo looks to the outside, but decides to back out of it before they get into it. I guess, Sean, he learned his lesson from that incident with Dan.
He sure did, and I'll tell you what, the bumper is very wide right now. Steve's doing a really great job of protecting the line and keeping himself right in just the right part of the track. But here comes Kimmo now. He's trying to get to the inside. No, he's stuck to the outside there. Can't make a move.
And he slots back in line, although he chops off Bieri, who has to hold up a little bit, and that's allowed Mim to get to the back of him. Boy, Kimmo is very desperate to get by, and now Bieri is back up on the back of Kimmo once again. We have got a truly train going. Steve is desperately holding on. He's got a very bad exit coming out of the toe of the boot. Kimmo's got a pretty good one. It's a drag race up the hill, coming into the heel. Kimmo is now side by side. All he has to do with the inside is outbrake Steve, Sean.
Yeah, here we go. And, well, now Kimmo's going to get it. And there he goes. Kimmo got the position. But he switched back. There he is, right back. No, not quite. Not enough. Not enough to get back around Kimmo. But he's still on him. He's not losing his bumper.
Yeah, Steve is going to want to fight very hard. He's losing just a little bit of contact with Kimmo coming into this penultimate corner, as now he's got Bieri behind him, but it's not too drastic. He can still get back into it. He's going to have to use the draft to really try and get back on this. We are down to 7 minutes left, so we've got maybe, I guess, 3 or 4 laps left to go in these cars, probably 4 laps. So it's getting down to the end. Bieri takes a pop onto the inside of Brown coming into turn 1, but he's not nearly close enough. That's more of a peak to say, I'm here and I'm in this battle too. These guys are 1, 2, 3. The draft is really going to help him close in coming down the back straightaway, Sean.
Yeah, it looks like we've actually got about 6 minutes left, so we're looking at about 3 laps maybe left in this race here, and Kimmo's starting to pull away. But Patrick is sitting pretty right now. Looks like he might be able to make a move.
I'd like to see Steve Brown try and get aggressive here and try and get that win. We haven't seen him win in so long, and he was so close here. He's holding on to Kimmo as that draft, like I said, pulled him back in. And Bieri, as you said, is going to have his say in things too. Mim is still kind of holding on, so he could be there to pick up the pieces. And it looks like last win was last round of Season 2 at Lime Rock Park. That was the last time that Steve Brown won. It's been over a year since he has won a race in the CESES. He has got to be hungry, Sean.
Yes, he is. And it looks like he's got a good chance here because Kimmo is not as fast as he was previously in the race, and I really think Steve is going to take advantage of this draft here at some point and try and put one more move on him here before we end this thing. And I think maybe if he can outbrake him to one of the turns, he's got a really good shot.
Now, they're not super close at the moment, so I want to hop back to ST. Richard, I see that James Stevenson has got his hands full as well.
I am telling you, James Stevenson does have his hands absolutely full. Stefan Morien is desperately trying to pull a move on James Stevenson. James actually had to go defensive in a couple of corners to hold him out. And lurking just behind the two of them, of course, is Stefan Overgaard. So this thing is not over yet by any means. Stefan Morien driving brilliantly at the moment to hang on to James Stevenson. James Stevenson really pulling out all the stops to stay in front of Stefan Morien. One slip up and Stefan will have him. And in fact, if any one of these three slips up, they're going to lose. I think that Stefan Overgaard is the slight loser here, because he is desperately trying to hang on to Stefan Morien as they go down the front straight away. Let's have a look and see what happens into turn 1 here. James Stevenson goes in deep and comes out wide, comes out very aggressively and slots back into first place. Stefan Morien now in the draft very firmly. Let's see what happens here. Stefan Overgaard just a little way back, not really no, he's closing up under the draft. So this could be anyone's. I'm scared for all three of these guys going in. As you see, James going defensive, hugging the inside line as they approach the bus stop. Stefan Morien decides not to try anything in the bus stop. Would have been really brave to do anything there. And so just at the moment we have the status quo being held, Joe, but I'm going to keep an eye on this if you guys want to go back to GS really quickly.
Well, Steve,
go ahead.
I was going to say Steve Brown is really close to making a move here. Bieri is looks to be fading back just a little bit, but Steve is all over Chemo right now.
Yeah, he is really trying everything he can. Like I said, he's really going to want that. And I'm pretty sure, as we mentioned, Steve having a long time between wins, I'm pretty sure Stefan Morien has never won a race in the CESCS, so he's going to want to pop that cherry. And yeah, both leaders just have their hands full, both of them saying, why can't I hold all these lines at the moment? Kimmo Suominen has got a bit of a breather at the moment, and it looks like Steve Brown has a breather too, because Patrick Bieri seems to have dropped off.
It does seem that he is something happened there. I've been watching this battle too, and I'm not sure what dropped off, but maybe his tires are just going away and he just can't keep it on the track. But Steve is. Hey, I think Steve would be very happy with the second place at this point.
Well, the white flag has flown, and even though he might be ready to settle for second because the points would be a good haul, what racer doesn't want to try and take the win home? So this is it. It's for all the marbles at this point. Steve is not nearly close enough to try and make something happen, so it looks like he's not going to be able to make a pass attempt. Meanwhile, let's hop back to James because he is coming off of turn 1. And Richard, this is where it's going to be if Morien's going to want to make a move.
Well, now it comes down to who's the bravest into the bus stop. I think that Stefan Overgaard has fallen off from this battle, so we'll just keep an eye on these two. We have Stefan Morien right on the back of James Stevenson now. He moves to the outside. James covers.
He's got
now
the
he
inside
moves to
now.
the inside. He's halfway on the grass at the moment. And James gives him room, and he's going to grab the position here. No, they go
make
in
contact
together and they touch. And I'm afraid that what's going to happen out of this is that Stefan Overgaard's going to grab the position. Stefan Morien, he nearly saved it, does save it. What's happened to James Stevenson? He saves it. He's back in there. He's going to overtake Stefan Morien and go back into second place. His car is fairly badly damaged. Stefan Morien's car is crabbing sideways, so he's severely damaged. Oh my goodness me, this is just not the end we wanted, but it looked like it was the only thing we could do. Back to GS.
It looks like the win is going to go to Chemo unless he screws up something major. He's coming up to the final corner now. It's one more turn to take home another win for the rookie. And it looks like he has got it cleanly through that final corner under the bridge and across the line for Kimmo Suominen for his 4th win of the season. Meanwhile, Steve Brown takes home another podium with a 2nd place finish, and Patrick Bieri his 3rd podium in a row, I believe. 3rd podium of the season. So awesome stuff from Bieri. Let's go back to ST.
And Stefan Overgaard now in command of this race. He's coming up onto the back of Stefan Morien, who cut the course completely to just try and limp back towards the pits. Behind him, we should see James Stevenson. Badly damaged car, but not as bad as Stefan Morien. And so our finishing positions here is going to be Stefan Overgaard as he takes the checkered flag just about now. So a win for Stefan Overgaard, a great finish for him, an opportunistic finish because he was not in the hunt at the time when the other two in front of him were battling. Tragic for Stefan Morien, and a good second place for James Stevenson, salvaging, sorry my voice is getting all mixed up, a salvaging second place for James Stevenson. Perhaps not the way he would have liked to finish. So that's it at the moment. Back to you, Joe.
And Arthur Chan has taken an excellent third place. Great podium for him. He has been on better form lately this season after a bad start and some bad racing in the other series he takes part in Blondies. Yeah, you know, with James, we wondered who could beat him, and it seems like the only way is to just take him out, essentially. But not the way we like to see it end. But is that the first win for Stefan Overgaard, if I'm not mistaken?
Certainly the first win this season. It's not the first win ever. He's won before, I think, Daytona. He had a couple of wins at Daytona. But no, Stefan Morien, in my opinion, Joe, he was in a bad position all the way up through the S's and up the back straightaway there, approaching the bus stop. The best thing for him would have been to have pulled out of the battle and taken second place, or maybe try something around the carousel and down the back. But he chose to make his move into the bus stop, and it turned out badly for him.
Yeah, I kind of figured that he was going to go for broke there, so I can't say I didn't expect some contact between himself and James. But let's go through the field now that everybody's run through and cross the start-finish line. And the GS class, the winner once again is Kimmo Suominen, with Steve Brown taking home second. Patrick Bieri completes the podium, with Travis Mim taking home a well-earned fourth. Then in fifth, it's Nicholas Bailey. We're not used to seeing him up that high, but a really good finish for him. What are the top five in the ST, Richard?
Well, I have to say these guys went around another lap as if they were still racing, but that was just the cool down lap. So the winner of this race at Watkins Glen, Stefan Overgaard, with an opportunistic situation when the two in front of him came together. But nevertheless, he's been in it all race long, and I would take that win anytime. He battled hard for it. He deserves it. Second, James Stevenson. And James fought hard, led most of the race, and came into a very good second place. Arthur Chan, who sat back in fourth place most of the race, came in third. Great third spot for him. Ed Voras, a fourth place. That's a really good finish for Ed Voras. In fifth, we have Philip Carpenter. Tom Eckline keeping his championship hopes alive in sixth. Stefan Morien did limp into seventh place. David Vermont in eighth, and Joshua Lloyds in ninth place. We didn't see much of Joshua Lloyds. I think he was out of the race, but it shows that he did finish 2 laps down from the leaders. Further than that, the others are out of the race, Joe.
So a chaotic finish to a pretty crazy race with a lot of very bad accidents. But we are going to take a break, and then we will come back with some interviews. We hope you stick around, because these should be some interesting views. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back to the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series live on the Global Sim Racing channel. That was a very interesting and very chaotic race at Watkins Glen that we just witnessed. But coming out on top of all the chaos was Kimmo Suominen in the GS class, an overall win. Kimmo, it seemed like you and Dan had some fierce battles, and you guys have made contact in a number of races. Is this just seem like fair, hard racing to you, or what are your feelings on all this contact?
Yeah, I think it's the third time that we have made contact this season, but when the racing is this close, and yeah, both of us want to win, of course, as much as we can, as much as we can, but yeah, I think it's just fair racing in the end. You have to take, have to know the limits of the car, of course, but sometimes you end up in the wall. That's just the name of the game.
Yeah, that's just how it goes at times. I understand it's pretty early in the morning over where you are, like 3 or 4 in the morning. Does that have an effect on how hard you're able to drive?
Hopefully not. Yeah, you're right. It's 4 a.m. right now, so I'm pretty tired right now. But I don't think it has much effect on my driving. Hopefully, I guess.
Well, we hope that we see you in 2 weeks' time. Will you be at Indianapolis?
Yeah, I think I'll be there. I don't think I've ever raced there, but I have to start practicing early for that race, I guess.
All right. Well, good luck, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Yep. See you guys.
Well, we also have Steve Brown waiting to be interviewed, and I believe Sean is going to talk to him.
Steve, Sean Ambrose here. Man, you really almost had that one. You were really up on the wheel there those last 5 or 6 laps. I really thought you were going to pull out a victory. I mean, in fact, your fastest lap was the 36th lap of the race. Tell us about it. How are you feeling there in the cockpit?
Well, I'm certainly happy with a second place podium finish, and the Turn 2 Motorsports Patrol Data Systems Mustang was pretty good today. I knew keeping Kimmo back there was going to be tough, and to be honest, I thought I had him too. But going through the bus stop a few times, I just got in there a little too deep. But Kimmo's pretty fast. He eventually got me, and then the last lap I even made another mistake through the bus stop, and I thought Patrick was going to get me there on the last lap, but held it together for a second place.
Well, it was a really solid run. You obviously, first half of the race, you showed a lot of patience, just kind of laid back and let it all come to you. And then there at the end, you were in line to make something happen, and you did. The podium, you've got to be just ecstatic with that podium for you and your sponsors. And what are your thoughts about the next race?
Yeah, like I said, I'm definitely happy with the podium, with the way that the season's gone so far. As far as the next race, I don't remember where we're going. That'll depend on, or how I feel depends on what track it is, but I know the second half of the season is usually better for me, so hopefully we can keep up these podium finishes.
Well, I believe the next race we're going to Indy. I hope it works out well for you. Again, really enjoyed following you today, and really happy for you and your team. Thanks again for being with us today.
Thanks, guys.
Well, we also have the ST winner waiting to be interviewed, and he is with Richard Losper.
Stefan, I am so happy for you winning that race, my friend. You know, in the early part of the race, you were following James around. It seemed like at various points in the race, you could have made a move on him, but seemingly you decided to stick with him. Then in the last part of the race, all of a sudden, here comes Stefan Morien, and he gets past you, and then it was a real battle. And I think that, to be honest, well, I'll ask you, what did you think? Did you think you would get that first place?
Oh, no, definitely not. That was quite surprising. I actually made a few mistakes that last lap, and I was about a second back and knew I couldn't catch any of them unless they made a mistake or took each other out, and they did that. So that's yeah, deja vu for me. It's just the same as last week. Sorry, 2 weeks ago.
Well, you know, these things happen. I mean, that's racing. I thought, what did you think of the battle that was going on in front of you between James and Stefan Morian? I mean, obviously you don't want to call anyone out, but personally, I thought bad move on the part of Stefan Morian to try that through the bus stop there.
Yeah, I think I could see that James was trying to cover the right side going down up the straight, but just looked like Stefan Moran thought there was just enough room, and yeah, I didn't really see what happened going into the bus stop to cause that, but yeah, I have to look at the replay for that.
Yeah, no, he was halfway on the grass at one point. But, you know, that's racing. He was trying to go for the first position. Didn't happen for him. Congratulations to you, Stefan. Really happy for you, my friend. And you can put that trophy on your shelf because no one can take that away from you now.
No, they can't.
All right. Thanks for talking to us, Stefan. Back to you, Joe.
One last person we want to talk to before we go away is James Stevenson, who seemed like a shoo-in for the win for most of the race. And then that tangle with Stefan Morian came. James, I have to say, up in the booth, we kind of saw that contact coming because I figured that Stefan was going to go for broke. Did you think he would make such an aggressive move, or what were your thoughts going into that thing, and what were your thoughts after it happened?
Oh, well, I knew he was going to try and go for it, but I think it was more my fault than his because I didn't quite give him enough room and he was pretty much trapped at the apex there.
Very, very gentlemanly of you to take that outlook. I know Richard feels otherwise. It seemed like you really had things under control as usual, and that end was really the surprise of the race. Were you and Stefan Overgaard working together throughout most of it, or plan to work together through that race? Because it seemed like you guys had some tactics in the qualifying.
Oh, we tried to do something in qualifying. It didn't really play out. I think both of our fastest laps were pretty much without drafting at all. But during the race, we didn't really have a plan. We just went for it and went as hard as we could and managed to pull away.
Well, as usual, 2 weeks' time, there's going to be the next race, which is Indianapolis. Will you be there?
I should be there. It's not one of my favourite tracks, but yeah, I should definitely be there.
All right. Well, thank you for coming and talking to us, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks' time then.
Thanks for having me in, guys.
Well, guys, this we said it was going to be an interesting race, and interesting, I think, is a very subtle word to use for what that race was. Sean, I mean, what are your thoughts on how GS went?
Well, I think we talked about it in the beginning about the cautions being a factor, and well, they were in the end. Strategy played out pretty well. Lots of good racing. In that 6th to 9th position, those four guys there pretty much stayed together the whole race. Dan, was a factor early and then got into trouble. Chemo took advantage of that. Of course, wins the race. A great run by Steve Brown. I don't think anybody predicted that coming into the race. And like we talked about in the interview, he was very patient, just kind of waited, let the game come to him, and gets himself a nice podium finish.
Richard, what about your thoughts on the ST side?
Yeah, in the beginning of the race, it seemed to me that it was going to be the James Stevenson show, but it didn't turn out that way, and I'm really glad it didn't, because I'm not glad about the fact that there was an accident right at the end. That is disappointing, I'm sure, for the drivers and for us all, because we like to see exciting racing but a clean finish. James didn't have it all his own way in the latter part of the race. He was strongly challenged by both Stefan Overgaard and then by Stefan Morian. A pity about what happened in the bus stop there. I don't think we can really attach any blame. Perhaps if one or the other had to do it over, they might do it differently. But all in all, a great race. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I was so glad to be a part of being able to call it.
Well, I know that I think that CESCS seems to become a full contact sport racing series the way things have been going. Very aggressive driving so far this season, and this race was exemplary of that trend. But we're going to close up, and we want to thank a few people in the process. We want to thank Safecraft Racing, who is the proud sponsor of the CESCS. They do a lot to make sure that drivers stay safe in real-life motorsports by making safety gear such as harnesses and helmets and whatnot. So we can't thank them enough for all that they do. Also, thanks to Wes Eric, the organizer of the league, for putting all the hours in he does. Thank you to the software and hardware that we use, iRacing.com, XSplit, Twitch TV, Audio Technica, and AverMedia. Also, thank you to the team. Thanks to Richard. Thanks to Sean Ambrose, Kevin, who acted as a spotter today, Giancarlo Lenzi, and of course, thank you to Samuel for holding down our Twitter during this race. Speaking of which, if you want to find out more, you can check out our Twitter at GSR Channel. You can also find out information at our website at www.globalsimracingchannel.com, where we have highlights and full races in the archives if you want to watch them. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Global Sim Racing Channel. Also, thank you to Eric Ekholm, who provides us a lot of his music for the broadcast. You can find his music not only here on GSRC, but on TV commercials, movie trailers, iTunes, and Spotify. If you like our music, tell him where you heard it at ericekholm.com. Thank you to Dexter Britton, who provides us with additional music and has a lot of great work with NASA, TED Talks, and McLaren. Listen or buy his music at dexterbritton.co.uk. Also, thank you to Casey Lalonde, who provided us part of the music for the intro video. You can find his stuff at caseylalonde.bandcamp.com, which includes many of, in fact, all of his albums are there. I highly recommend them. I have a number of them that I've bought personally. Our next race is October 26th at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and that starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. That is the next race for the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. Our next broadcast, however, is the Blondie Series. That is October 19th, and that is at Okayama, and that kicks off at 2 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and I'll see you on the track.